Welcome back to our masterclass in writing a novel, your novel. And we have been focused on chapter 1, examples, and this is the 5th in that set. Studying an example of another novel is one of the most effective ways to learn how to write your own novel, because it gives you a living, working model of exactly what it looks like. So we need to switch out of our passive reading mode and switch in to our active writer mode to be productive here. You're not just observing what an author did, but asking why they did it and whether you agree with those choices. And this analysis will sharpen your own creative instincts and pull out your voice, your style, which will reveal itself when you ask questions such as, I wouldn't have done it that way. And I would have done it exactly like this. We need to identify the author's choice and figure out what effect it creates for the reader. Where does the chapter start? Did it start with action, memory, dialogue, setting, and so on? How did this author start? What is the point of view and what is the tone? What conflict or question was introduced? How does the chapter build or shift tension? And what's the final beat or the image that ends the chapter? Take the analysis a little deeper and ask the questions, why did they open with that image or that action? Why use a flashback here? Why withhold certain information? Why use dialogue instead of narration, and vice versa? Now you need to judge. Did that choice work? Did it create tension or confusion? Did it make the character more relatable or distant? Did it move the plot or did it stall it? Imagine your alternative. Again, we're pulling on, I would have done it this way. This is valuable because it's where your voice starts to show. Build creative confidence. Clarify your stylistic preferences. Turn this on yourself as well. Learn how to critique your own drafts in exactly the way you are now critiquing another author. Choose chapters from authors that you admire. Choose chapters from a different genre than you intend to write. Choose chapters from different genre of what you typically read and do the same analysis. Chapters from books you find confusing or frustrating. You will turn this analysis ultimately back on to yourself as you craft and refine your chapters into a professional grade novel. With this example, I drafted 2 back cover copies. The first was focused more on capturing the story, and the second concentrated more on the cinematic elements. James Moore, a scientist of note, conceived an innovative technology with enormous promise and collaborated to further develop it with his fiancée, Marianne Dufay, a clinical psychologist. The tech's huge upside potential got the unwanted attention of Vivian Dunbar, who headed a venture capital firm. Against their better judgment, James and Marianne took the large signing bonus, but on discovering Vivian intended to manipulate the technology to control a user's life rather than enhance it, they disabled the project and searched for a hiding place to wait out the expected fallout. The escape came in the form of a luxury submersible super yacht that could not only travel across the oceans of the world, but also explore their depths. Vivian was extremely wealthy, well-connected, and used to getting her own way. After her company's board blamed her for the debacle and voted her out, she shut herself off from the world in a brooding manner that inevitably diseased her mind into a single purpose: to use her significant resources to hunt them down and exact her revenge. Let's take a look at the second alternative. James and Marianne are escaping in a luxury submersible super yacht called Third Option. While looking for a relaxing time, they soon find that a mysterious ship is trailing them. The misty ties of this ship lead back to Vivian Dunbar, a CEO bearing a grudge and with an agenda. Danger stands on their horizon, so they slip away to take their dream vacation to Angkor Wat, to hide inside of its beauty. The seemingly idyllic break for them turns out to be more of a survival battle, as their guide gets shot and they are forced to run into the jungle. Danger comes menacingly close to James, and Marianne has no option but to face it head on. Can they manage to escape, or will their dream shatter into a nightmare? The first version of the back cover copy is stronger overall in terms of tone, audience appeal, and setup. It gives clear story origin for the conflict: James and Marianne's invention, the moral dilemma, and their decision to go on the run. It introduces Vivian, the villain, with psychological depth, her fall from power and descent into obsession, and that is compelling. The luxury submersible yacht as an escape is unique and intriguing. But the writing here feels a bit wordy and formal, which can sap the energy and tension. Some phrasing feels awkward and maybe a little passive. So the second version is more direct and more cinematic. It's got a focus on suspense and action. The Angkor Wat setting adds a visual and exotic appeal. The mystery ship, guide being shot, the jungle chase, it all raises the stakes very clearly. I think it lacks clear setup for why they're running and who is Vivian. It makes the danger feel slightly forced or generic. The tone is less polished and more of an action-only thriller, lacking the intelligence that is obviously there. So phrases like misty ties and dream shatter into a nightmare and danger comes menacingly close all feel a little cliche. So let's combine these two versions and get the best of both. When a revolutionary invention threatens to fall into the wrong hands, escape is only the beginning. Scientist James Moore and clinical psychologist Marianne Dufay have created a device that could change the world. But when venture capitalist Vivian Dunbar tries to seize it for a darker purpose, they shut the project down and vanish. Hunted by a powerful enemy with limitless resources and a growing thirst for revenge, the couple takes refuge aboard Third Option, a luxury submersible yacht built for disappearing into the deep. But when a shadowy vessel appears on their trail, the chase turns global. Seeking sanctuary among the ancient temples of Angkor Wat, James and Marianne find themselves thrust into a deadly jungle pursuit. As bullets fly and allies fall, survival may hinge not on what they invented, but on how far they're willing to go to protect each other. So this one is stronger, much more compelling overall, and I'd say very close to a professional grade blurb. It balances plot, character, and stakes while maintaining a clear and engaging voice. Strong opening hook that sets the stakes immediately and suggests suspense. We quickly understand the invention, the villain, the escape, and what's at risk. The submersible super yacht and Angkor Wat locations are fresh, evocative, and do add a lot of intrigue. The dynamic between James and Marianne is given just enough to spotlight and show the emotional weight without overwhelming the plot. So let's leave the blurb where it is and let's take a look at chapter 1 of this story. They wended their way down the dirt road deeper into the jungle, huddled in the back of a moped-powered trishaw, to a hotel recommended for its easy access to the temples of Angkor Wat. Marianne leaned into James. They kissed, and he could still smell the lotus blossom fragrance on her wet hair from a blessing a monk had given at a monastery along the way. She pointed out the sunset painted on a vast expanse of the western sky, blending pinks, blues, purples, and gold, with the mirror image reflected on a passing flooded rice field. Their guide, Van Selpak, tilted his head to one side, shut off the engine, and coasted to a stop so they could hear the chants ringing out over the plains. Van was 30, had a dark-skinned, round face, large brown eyes, straight, thick black hair, full lips, and a wide, flat nose. And in between being their guide, he never stopped talking about his deep reverence for the royal family. "We will be there in 10 more minutes. I don't know if you know, but they are direct descendants of the great king." "Really?" "No rush, Van. It's not the destination, it's the journey," said James. "You would make a good Buddhist. Don't forget, I be ready at 4:30 in the morning tomorrow. Don't be late or you miss it. We have had 12 kings since 1860. We will be in time, and thank you, Van. We are enjoying this immensely." Van had lost both hands in an accident when he worked for the electric company, and he had used his compensation to get passive prosthetic hands and go to school to learn English. He described this turn of events as a blessing, as tourism made him more money and there was no manual labor. The hotel was a good example of new Khmer architecture, which blended the grand style of Angkor with that of a domestic building. It had a peaceful, serene atmosphere with the smell of Palo Santo incense, and they were immediately welcomed with a bouquet made from intricately stitched pink and purple lotus blossom flowers. The main courtyard had a lychee tree at its center with earth-tone walls and flooring made from local stone, dark wooden furniture, and cultural accents. James Moore was 37, 6 feet tall, fit with blonde hair and blue eyes. and the accent spoke of being originally from England, while Marianne was younger by 5 years with an unmistakable French accent. She was petite with a slim face, high cheekbones, and big brown eyes. They were both wearing neutral, textured linen clothing that epitomized vacation casual, and James caught her looking a little pensive. "Penny for your thoughts, love?" When I was a child, I always wanted to stay on vacation forever. It seemed to me you blinked and it was over. I agree. My father took us to Bermuda for just over a week when I was about 7. I remember pink sand beaches, historic fortifications, sea swimming, tropical music, but mostly being so sad when it was over. Time flies when you're having fun, I suppose. I remember the same, and making a promise to myself that when I was older, I would go on vacation for a month. And now we are able to do it. It's not quite what I imagined. And if I'm honest, I'm feeling a little homesick. Strange, isn't it? If one never had the opportunity to have an extended vacation, you would go through life pining for something that would ultimately not be all it's cracked up to be. I've been feeling the same, by the way. Too much of a good thing, maybe. Yes, and it would have been different if we hadn't been forced to stay away. That's true. I have always had Angkor Wat on my list. I'm embarrassed to say it was the influence of the Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider movies rather than it being such an interesting historical and cultural site. James laughed. I'm guilty of that too. So this is a vivid, atmospheric first half, strong visual details, a rich sense of the place, and well-drawn characters. It immerses the reader in the experience of travel to Cambodia and offers a slow burn opening that prioritizes mood and relationship over any immediate action. The exchanges between James and Marianne feel authentic and emotionally grounded. Their bond is clear, and it captures the bittersweet tone of being on a long vacation with underlying tension. Van Selpak is lively and distinct, and his dialogue adds realism and charm. The conversation about vacations and homesickness foreshadows that this trip may have more significance or complexity than meets the eye. The line, "It would have been different if we hadn't been forced to stay away," hints at a backstory or external pressure, building intrigue without being too heavy-handed. So let's take a look at the second half. Their suite had lacquered black furniture with white flooring on walls and high windows looking out to the curvilinear pool and dense canopy of the Cambodian jungle beyond. There were freshly baked pastries laid out as a welcome, which they ate on the patio, listening to the slow, ornamental Buddhist chants playing through the room speakers. They both freshened up in the open rain shower before dinner as the humidity was high and decided not to make it a late night as it was going to be a very early start and a long day of sightseeing. The staff did wake them gently and served a light breakfast, but 4 a.m. was an ungodly hour and they were both strongly tempted to call the whole thing off. Marianne was not a morning person, no matter how much she tried to convince herself, and she had stayed up late searching for details on the Bayon Temple and Ta Prohm. "James, I want to ask Van to take us to Priya Khan. The pictures are amazing. 12th century, and it lies tangled in the roots of silk cotton trees. Its perimeter is guarded by these stone mythological bird creatures called Garudas. Let's mention it. And there it was again, a feeling. It was less like a sixth sense and more like his amygdala was processing all of his senses simultaneously, the combination of which signaled a warning. Marianne picked up on his heightened state and could see the distraction. Still there? Yes, I think it's just a little paranoia, especially after what happened. There is always a residual and after effect from these things, but I'm pretty sure we got clean away. Van was waiting, engine running, in a light rain shower, ready for the 10-minute drive to the outer limits of the sprawling labyrinth of Kaimar temples. It was pitch black, and his single weak headlight seemed sorely inadequate. But the full moon broke through the canopy of trees to light up sections of the forest track as they drove deeper into the jungle. They had heard Van's rebukes to people that got in his way before, as they came as frequently as he mentioned choice anecdotes, and so they thought little as he uttered another. Soon after this last one, however, the bike's handlebar turned sharply as he slumped. His body fell to the ground, and the trishaw flipped onto its side. Marianne had seen the headshot, and she pulled James down and out of the vehicle. The headlight showed the silhouette of a shooter walking slowly towards them. Marianne reached quickly for Van's pocket to remove a lighter and lit a piece of dry foliage. Back up, James, keeping the carriage as cover. She threw the leaf at the gasoline puddle dripping from the gas tank. It caught fire, and the flames rose up to engulf the bike. They backed away more quickly, and when the tank exploded, they darted into the dense forest, and Marianne watched the shots follow them, and something registered. They moved quickly, zigzagging between trees and leaping across the roots before ducking down and going to ground. Moonlight revealed they were no longer on the forest floor, but on a platform of iron-red slabs that formed part of a pathway to a crumbling stone pyramid, and that these slabs were ruptured as vegetation broke through the cracks. Lines of black ants, each carrying a leaf section, moved across the sandy red soil nearby and around large termite mounds. Humanity may have once taken over, but Mother Nature had returned to reclaim her domain. Marianne tapped his shoulder, pointed, and they sprinted to a structure, hurdling exposed roots and ducking under hanging creepers. Once again, shots followed them, and Marianne again noticed the grouping. They reached an opening and slipped in through an arch framed by two sturdy stone pillars entwined with silk cotton and strangler fig tree roots. It was a sealed room with huge faces that looked like Buddhist deity carved into the wall of stone. But the only way out was the way they came in. Marianne leapt across the entrance to find James. Bullets flew, and she had her confirmation. Listen, James, the intention is to kill me, but not you. James looked into her eyes, and his mind tried to grapple with a problem that had all at once gotten decidedly more complex. What? I believe capturing you is the objective. There's spite here. Marianne had more experience than James in combat, and her mind raced, caught in a quandary. To stay and protect him would lay herself open to be killed, which she believed was the shooter's objective. Logic dictated she run, but then they would get James. There was only one choice, she decided. Stay in here. I will go out and deal with this. A flashlight played across the entrance, lighting up the stone face carvings, and for a moment it looked as though they came to life. James grabbed her around the waist, held her in a tight grip, and stepped out with his James grabbed her around the waist, held her in a tight grip, and stepped out with his back to the entrance. Marianne's eyes were wide with fear, as she searched his eyes for an answer to this reckless act. She felt his body tense as he braced for impact, but nothing happened, and so he backed out and sidestepped away, always covering her. They missed the rising sun, silhouetting Angkor Wat against a sky backdrop that transitioned from deep blue-purple hues to an orange-yellow glow, as they ran, leaping across a lotus pond as dragonflies danced on the water and frogs and birds sang out their morning chorus. So this half shifts dramatically from contemplative travelogue to sudden visceral action. This transition gives the story momentum, emotional stakes, and narrative intrigue, blending lyrical prose with suspense. The sudden attack is well executed, and the pacing intensifies in a way that shocks the reader, but doesn't feel out of place. It capitalizes on the mystique of the temples and jungle during the chase, the ancient pyramid, the red slabs, moonlight, creeping vegetation. It all enhances danger and disorientation. Nature becomes here a character. The termite mounds, the ants, the explosion. This poetic layering gives the scene depth beyond the surface action. Marianne's tactical mindset and assessment of the shooter's behavior adds tension and shows and demonstrates her capability. James's sudden protective action shifts the emotional weight and creates a pivotal relationship moment. The contrast between the serene, sacred setting and sudden violence is striking and very effective. It underlines themes of fragility, desecration, and sanctuary. What makes it work is that the first half earned emotional resonance. Readers already like James and Marianne, and this threat to them feels very personal and serious. This is the fifth example of a Chapter 1 start. We have been using 5 books in the James Moore series. Book 6 is about halfway done at this particular time. In the next sessions of this Masterclass series, we will focus on sections for Chapter 2, and we will use those to exercise our writing ability. I do hope this video has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Otherwise, bye for now.